Yay! A 666,000 subscriber special that nobody asked for, but I decided to take upon myself to do this. Why? Giratina is my favorite goddamn Pokemon, and I couldn't think of a better excuse to talk about it. Now, you may find it interesting that if you look at my current subscriber count, I have more than 666,000 subscribers, and that's because when I was originally working on this video, I didn't really expect it to end up being one of my favorite videos for a long time, because it's not like Giratina's an anime character or whatever that has its own ideology or philosophy or interesting psychology that I can attach to on a personal level. But after really researching this vid, I came to really love Giratina a lot more than I ever thought I did. So again, thank you for getting me to this milestone, because like most characters, I only really start to love them after I work on videos for them. In case you're baffled by why am I doing a video on Giratina for 666,000 subscribers, oh my god, that makes no sense. Well, it's because you don't know enough about Pokemon lore, damn it. Giratina has 6 wings, 6 tentacles, and 6 spikes. 666 is the number of the Satan, and I hit 666,000 subscribers. Yay! Also, I was congratulated on this milestone by Satan on Twitter. Yes, actual Satan's Twitter account with like 1.5 million followers congratulated me on this milestone. Extremely cool, Satan. Extremely cool. Feel free to follow me on Twitter, link in the description. Sorry for the obnoxious plug. So I hope you enjoy another episode of Nux Makes a Video because he thinks it's a dope video, even though he doesn't expect to get great views on it, but there's nothing you can do about it. Very cool. But to jump right into the meat and potatoes, Pokemon has a theme when it comes to legendaries that they each represent something or other. Now, every trio, like Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza, represents land, sea, and sky. Very straightforward shiz right here. So now, the creation trio of Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina represent time, space, and antimatter, respectively. They're the creation trio because they were created by Arceus, who is Pokemon God. Very cool! Until now, I've said nothing but facts, no opinions or conjecture. This is what they represent, and after Arceus created the 3 of them, he then banished Giratina into the reverse world, an alternate universe that mirrors our own, but as a reflection. In other words, everything is the exact opposite of what's going on in ours. Only difference is, it's void. There is no life in the reverse world except for Giratina roaming there endlessly for all of eternity. Now, it's never made exactly 100% clear why Arceus decided to banish Giratina, but it is heavily implied that it's because, you know, he's gonna destroy the world or something. According to the first law in thermodynamics, matter can never be created nor destroyed. It can only be redistributed in a conservation of mass. So in a nutshell, if I have a rock and I vaporize the rock with the massive cannon laser thingo, and the rock is now gone, it's not that the matter's been destroyed, it's just been turned into much smaller particles that are now everywhere, so the rock seems like it was vaporized. No matter was created, and no matter was destroyed, just simply redistributed. Antimatter, on the other hand, when coming in contact with matter, nullifies the both of them, and both are obliterated, as it is literally and metaphorically speaking, the negative number to our positive reality. If this rock is 10 matter points and gets hit by 10 antimatter points, you get your 10 minus 10 and you end up with nothingness. So antimatter being in our very own world would be catastrophic, despite the fact that antimatter itself isn't inherently a bad thing. It can be used for fuel as well as for medicinal purposes, according to modern day science, and it can be used as weapons, which again aren't inherently bad. Weapons are good when used at certain times. It depends on the user of said weapons. So it's not like Giratina is inherently evil, representing this force that's just too dangerous to be unleashed. Arceus banishing him to the reverse world is just necessary steps in order to keep every other bit of creation functioning properly. Giratina's imprisonment was for so long and was so permanent of a deal. Whenever any legendary Pokemon appears in the Pokemon games, because you click on them, want to battle them, hopefully catch them, and hopefully you saved right before that because you're going to be throwing dozens of Ultra Balls and need to restart a couple of times to do it. We've all been there. You always get a very similar experience. You click on Dialga and it goes then Dialga goes and then the text says a wild Dialga appeared, and so on and so forth for every other Pokemon, and I will not be attempting to do their cries because that would be a very different, slightly less enigmatic or philosophic video. Maybe another time, but don't hold me to that because it probably will not happen. I'm telling you right now, don't flood my comments with Nux, where's that all 720 Pokemon cry video you promised us? It's not happening anytime soon. Unless Unless, of course, the fanbase really wishes, and I always do what I can to please the fanbase. Why do I come up with these ideas that I will later definitely regret? But the point is, whenever a wild Pokemon appears, it has the generic phrase, a wild blank appeared. When Giratina appears in the reverse world where you find him, it doesn't say a wild Giratina appeared, it says the reverse world's Giratina appeared. This is his domain. The reverse world owns Giratina because he was set to remain there for eternity. He needs to exist for the sake of balance, but at the same time, we don't want him present around any other life because he will only wreak havoc. Now, what's even more interesting about this entire thing is the very, very clear similarities and likely the very origins of Giratina connecting him to Satan. And aside from the 666 thingo, and aside from the thing that he's sort of like banished to hell and stuff, his very story is very interesting as well. And what I find even more fascinating about it is that the Jewish and the Christian philosophies, despite stemming from the same place, has a very different look on what Satan is or who he represents. Giratina is somehow a combination of the two, and I find that very fascinating. According to Christianity, Satan is an angel that fell because he rebelled against God, and he was therefore banished as punishment for his actions. Now, Judaism views Satan in an entirely different light because angels shouldn't have their own actions that differ from how God commands them to be. God created Satan in order to entice humans, therefore giving them free will in order to actually do good or bad. Without Satan pushing them to sin, they just won't sin, and there's no need for creation. Satan is completely subservient to God and not an alternate power whatsoever. God is omnipotent, and there is no other power. Satan just has the very tragic task of being hated, where he will eventually be killed in the end times, despite the fact that he is just carrying out every single order perfectly. And the reason why I say it's fascinating that Giratina melds these two ideas together is because, on the one hand, we know that when Giratina breaks out of the reverse world, he teams up with Palkia and Dialga to attack Arceus, which would represent rebelling against God, and therefore his banishment very much remains in constitution, following Christianity's view of what Satan represents. But on the flip side, Giratina isn't inherently evil. He was just created to balance out the world, and unfortunately, he got a really short end of the stick on this one, and therefore he's banished for eternity, but not because he did anything wrong. He's doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing. He is antimatter that will destroy the universe if left unchecked, but he is just doing his duties, and therefore there is all the reason to feel terrible for Giratina for being trapped for this eternity, mirroring Judaism's depiction of Satan. Every time Giratina's met in the anime or manga, he's always viewed as a more antagonistic force. He's always trying to combat something. He's always destroying something. But even in the anime or manga itself, it's not like it's his fault. Imagine being cast away for eternity for literally no reason aside from this is how you were born. And it's not even like he was being treated unfairly per se, because we can't just have him wreck the entire fabric of reality because we feel bad for him. However you look at it, it's a tragic existence for a Pokemon, and it is always fascinating to bump into the guy. Traveling into the reverse world in Pokemon Platinum is one of my all-time favorite moments in all of Pokemon history. The idea of a reverse world completely mirroring our own, where the only inhabitant is Giratina, is also just so fascinating, but it's also equally as tragic. The reverse world is an exact mirror, in fact. The entire universe and all of the galaxies within our world are completely mirrored there. They all exist. The only difference is there's no life. There's nothing for Giratina to do for eternity, trapped in this alternate world, governing it and keeping some sort of balance. Of course, he yearns escape, and of course, he wants to butt heads with anyone he can whenever he gets the chance, because he just wants to meet someone else. He wants to see another living being. His world is so contorted. This is something I noticed in the games, and I've never heard anyone talk about it, so I don't know if it was just my Platinum game, but when you encounter Giratina, he has no shadow, unlike every other Pokemon in the game, until he uses the move Shadow Force, and then, after coming back from using Shadow Force, he then casts a shadow. It's just a subtle little detail that goes to show that the reality he's living in is so hazy, aside from the fact that there's no one around, you can only feel bad for this Pokemon. One of the greatest appeals of Pokemon to me is the fact that it's a completely new, open world with all these wonderful creatures roaming around, none of which are inherently evil. They just do the best they can, and the lucky ones will form bonds with trainers that genuinely care about them. And through these bonds, they can further develop. Every Pokemon is eventually viewed through this light as a potential future friend. As, yes, a wild creature roaming around in this world, but a creature that can be given such a much better life and can be understood so much better on not just a species level, but on a personal level. I feel connected to Ash's Chimchar in Diamond and Pearl, and the reason why the world is so magical is that you can develop this connection with any Pokemon. It's a world with infinite adventures and infinite mysteries with magical creatures that grew up with me since I was a kid and hold so much nostalgia in my heart as to not only what they are and the adventures I vicariously lived through by playing the games or watching the anime, but Pokemon has almost become an ideal in my mind as well as in the mind of many others. It's an ideal of how companionship can be forged as long as you put your butt into it, and happiness can be attained through this new bond that you've created with someone really special to you. That is the ideal of Pokemon. The ideal of doing the impossible and creating impossible friends in impossible places in a magical world. And I love it. I love every bit of that. Giratina is an absolutely tragic Pokemon because he is someone whose companionship can never be had. He is someone who none of these ideals necessarily can pertain to. He contaminates the outside world by merely visiting there, reducing it to nothingness, and he's banished for eternity alone. Unchecked, his power can destroy everything, so therefore he is forced into eternal damnation. Now, we have seen him in the anime as well as in the manga fly around in the real world for short periods of time, and it's not like, oh my god, the entire world just disappeared, it was terrible. No, none of that happened because it's more likely it has to unleash some sort of crazy force to do that, and it's not a risk that Arceus is willing to take, leaving a ticking time bomb walking around. But the reason why Giratina is my favorite Pokemon of all time is because you, that's right, you, the player of Pokemon Platinum, goes into the reverse world, catches Giratina, befriends Giratina, and takes Giratina out of solitude and suffering. Now with a trainer, it can keep its power in check to some degree. That is the final story for this incredible Pokemon. It's a happy ending to an infinite tragedy, because the ideal of Pokemon, after all, is making impossible friends in impossible scenarios. Giratina represents the goddamn Satan and is locked away in an alternate dimension that's essentially hell. And you, because you care, can pull him out of there. Just like you can pull all your friends out of any of their issues. Just like you can make a huge difference to other people's lives in this very real world. It's a sad scenario where no one did anything wrong. Giratina needed to be created, he needed to be locked away, tragic as that is, and Giratina had a horrible destiny laid before him where his fate was to be eternally trapped. And you, the player of Pokemon, the protagonist of your own Pokemon journey, are the sole being with the power to destroy this fate, to befriend this Satan, where you can both grow to new heights together. This is why no one understands Giratina. No matter the impossible circumstances, no matter how bleak the future may seem, gotta be the best that you can be. Hope you enjoyed this video, a little different than my usual. If you did enjoy, please leave a like, and also definitely subscribe for future really epic content thingos. And also, share this video with any Pokemon fan friend of yours you could think of so I can justify to myself why I made a video that I knew wouldn't get views. Thank you. Extremely cool. And maybe I could do this again if all goes well. Link is in the description to my Twitter. Feel free to follow me there, as well as to my merch. Feel free to pick some up. To my Twitch. I plan to do streams eventually, like soon eventually. It just didn't happen yet for some reason. And link to my Patreon. All patrons are invited to the Discord server, as are all members that click the join button next to the subscribe button. That's extremely awesome. I especially wanted to thank the patrons David Enoll, Burning Bush, Gammy, Isaac Goodsman, Sage of Snake, Steelers, Max Ebner, Bailey Plays Drums, Matthew Campbell, Nemo, Girthy Worm Jim, Oscar, Caitlin Miles, Chunky Nibbles, Rakamaru, The Wolf of Gar, Elazer, Shin, Moroloth, Jordan, Buttoey Tex, Jungner, Talon, Bestis Dilf Cross, Aaron Pinkerton, Mitchell Garnett, Miriam Ramirez, Trigreen, Itachi's wife, thank you Itachi's wife, very cool, Because Hashirama Cells, David Shull, Ian Martin, praise Lord of the Gilgamesh, Nerdlock Suzumaki, very awesome Piss in the Bed music video you did, extremely cool, Misshapen Corgi, Jose Ramirez, Shinon, Kid Ori, Unknown, Seymour Butts, LJ, Kaiser Wanar, Maggie Ewens, Elias Andan Soko, Divine Reigns, Enkosen, Teakui, Vincent Tran, some guy named Bob, Samuel Guzman, Los Polos Hermanos, Brian Mlakar, Fong Nguyen, Juan Centeno, Karma, King Rainbow, Jeffrey Baltazar, and some guy written in Japanese. Thanks to the Lord Twigger rank, Luke Swank, Anthony Booth, Noctris 13, Zach Klapperick, Elliot Gonzalez, Rari, Cicero, MD, can't afford higher tiers anymore. Thank you, by the way, very appreciated. Majora, Bearbon, Petite Dilf, Everest, Fadanyo, You May Question, Rocket Kitten, The Ninth Master, and some guy written in Japanese. Also thanks to the Gadusop rank, Skyfly Light44 and Maurice Luis Dreyfus, and thank you to the Hashirama Cell rank, Jared Morgan and Dark Element, as well as thank you to Kana for being like Gremin but with a bigger dick. I greatly appreciate all of your help and support. I'm glad I did this milestone-ish special thingo. It was a lot of fun. I'm always happy to talk about things that I like. So have yourselves a most wonderful evening, and remember to stay weird, fam.